Back on Morning Line, final segment with Davidson County Sheriff Darren Hall. If you want to talk to him, there's the number, 737-7587. Lisa just had a quick follow-up on that mental issue. Lisa, are you there?
I am.
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
My next question was, I'm not sure, I wanted to ask, do you guys have a mental illness court? Because I know they don't have it in Rutherford County, but I wanted to see if they had it in Davidson County. And what do we as consumers need to do to make sure we get those courts so those people can get the help they need? And then what else can we do to start when the kids are younger in school to get the mental illness help? Because I think that's where it's all starts.
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. Nashville does have a mental health court. We've had one for 20 years or so. One thing to keep in mind, and I was fascinated with this last couple of years, I've been looking into it. About 30% of the people who are arrested have a mental health problem. That's probably true in Rutherford County too. It's pretty common around the country. 30% are mentally ill. Of the people who are mentally ill, only 5% of them ever get to that court. It takes obviously a very high level of mental illness, and also they do very intensive work, and it's a really good thing. The mental health court does great work, but it's really not about the quantity. It's a quality debate. They're working on very specific cases, and they do really good work. My concern is the quantity deal. We're dealing with volumes of people who are coming in and out of the system who are fairly low-level crime. Walking through the airport is not a significant crime, or climbing on the street is not a significant crime, but they all end up in the jail, and then they'll end up on probation, eventually violate probation, come right back in, and as the Wall Street Journal guy was talking, ultimately be in prison if we don't correct that one day. And I believe
has that article come out yet?
He was interviewing me about what was the other thing? Medical costs and so forth, and then we went into the whole mental health thing. So he's
is that coming out soon? Or I don't
he's
know
written it several times. He's been there. He's just real passionate. I was really interested in what he had to say about it. But Lisa's point's right. In Rutherford County, what I would suggest that you do is, and I was up there, gosh, 6 weeks ago, and, to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, the mayor and other folks, and I explained some of this. They were asking questions about, you know, my suggestion is to study who is coming to jail. Most people do an anecdotal thing. They think it's gangs, or they think it's this. You should study what it is, and your county should be able to tell you what percentage of people are mentally ill, and why don't we do something about that? What percentage are women, what percent are juvenile, and then really go after where your problems are. And Nashville and most counties have ignored the mental health crisis for 20 years.
It's costing us all a lot of money too.
Really.
Gosh. All right, let's go to Ann. Ann, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Hi, Ann. Hi.
I have a question for the sheriff.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to know if yes, good morning.
No,
Good morning, Ann. Go
talk to us on the phone. Don't listen to the TV. What's your question?
Yes, I want to ask the sheriff if a man and a woman is living together for the past 3 years, and they have spit spats together, and she goes and get an order of protection on him, order him to stay away from her, and then she calls him. What is he supposed to do?
First of all, he has to follow the order, the order of protection, regardless of what she's doing. He has to stay away. There will be a court date assigned to that order of protection, and then all of that needs to be addressed in the courtroom. You know, with the judge ruling on what that means. Sometimes, even if she's calling him, they can hold her in contempt and actually go after her because she's required not to do that as well. But what I would tell him or you to advise him is you follow the order that's been issued, and until they get in a courtroom, as you can imagine, this happens a lot. People change their mind and they want to get back involved. My feelings are that you're violating the order whether you wanted to go back or not, or whether she wanted you to go back or not. And that doesn't erase the fact that the court has said you must stay away. You can get back in a courtroom and explain to the court you know, what's going on in the situation, and they can relieve the order of protection and things can go on forever. But while that's still been issued and is still outstanding, you do not need to violate it.
Yeah, you have to go address it.
Right.
That is no matter what's going on in your own life, if you don't get that changed.
Right.
That happens on all kinds of things. I mean, people think, oh, we've worked things out, no problem. Even in child custody or you know, child support payments, oh, we worked it out. But that court order is still hanging there.
Right.
And that applies forever unless you change it.
That's right.
You know, on the issue of the mental health, by the way, it happened that a couple of weeks ago there were 2 suicides in 1 week in Rutherford County, but I've seen it in other jails where it happens. where do you look at? It's got to be very hard to monitor. I mean, sometimes you get inmates that come in, right, Sheriff, that maybe are suicidal, and you're aware of it, and maybe there's special provisions for them. But you've had suicides in the jail here.
Right,
it's happened.
right.
I mean. And almost every time that happens, there's a lawsuit filed, which I feel for the families. But how much can you really do to prevent this sometimes? I mean, where are you held accountable and where are you not?
Yeah, you know what? That's it's obviously a failure on our part. We always feel, the staff, everyone, it's a very difficult thing to go through as a facility, because it is, you feel like you could have prevented it.
But if someone you don't have cameras in every single cell, or do you?
No.
Okay, so if someone didn't show any signs of being suicidal, and they've got a mattress with a sheet on it, and somehow they find a way to twist that just right around the bars and lean just enough to cut off the air supply and die. I mean, it's awful, and yeah, sometimes you check, but how are you responsible for that?
Yeah, just to give you an idea, of course, we have a very large system here in our jail, but we have, on average, between 7 and 9, we have a meeting every Monday morning, 7 to 9 active suicide attempts every weekend. Now,
let me process that. You just said you have 7 and 9 active suicide attempts, and these are not necessarily individuals that were brought in suicidal. They become suicidal once they go behind bars.
What active means to us is they were trying to. They didn't just say it.
Oh,
they didn't just say, "Hey, I'm thinking about." No, I mean, I had a picture sent to me last night before in the morning, and it was, and our staff. This is sheets tied around something. This is in a female's housing unit. This is where she was when they got her out of the noose that she had put around her neck. People are, cutting on themselves. We had a case just a few weeks ago, a person trying to drown themselves in the toilet. And I don't mean trying, I mean literally active. And we almost lost him. I mean, it was one of the more bizarre cases I've seen.
Wow.
But when we say 7 to 9 active, these folks are in the process of trying to harm themselves legitimately. I don't mean just.
They're going for it. Yeah.
And so that's the volume of cases. We've got the numbers that you wouldn't believe. So 200% increase in suicide attempts in our system over the last, 10, 12 years. You cannot imagine when you're bringing a person who's in, suffering from anxieties and all sorts of mental illness into a jail that's never designed to treat mental illness, and you compound it with all the other chaos that goes on inside of a jail system. It's a very difficult thing to deal with. I'll give you a good example. When I came into this line of work, and up until probably 5 years ago, we would isolate people because we felt like if you came in and was acting out or was in some form threatening yourself or other people, we would isolate you. The movement now in the last 4 or 5 years is to never isolate people, unless literally violence would be the only reason. But people aren't going to harm themselves with someone in the cell with them, hardly ever. You may fall asleep, and I might do it then. But what we've learned is you want more eyes and observation, even if it's not staff, because an inmate will scream out, hey, he's in here. So what we're learning is we need more eyes on you, not less. And over the years, isolating people, our new facility we're building over here is very few isolated rooms in it as we go forward.
And even if you do with the rooms, do you have to look at, I'm just imagining, okay, you want to make it as safe as possible, short of putting them in a padded cell, which is not an option. But there's always going to be something in there. I guess they can make their own shanks, or there's always going to be a sheet, or maybe the toilet where they can stick their face. I mean, there's only so much you can do to suicide-proof a cell, right?
Yeah, and Nick, that's what's so.
A normal cell.
Right. I mean, we have hang-proof hooks where you hang your clothes on. Well, it breaks. They all
if they
break.
tried to hook something to hang themselves.
You take the sprinklers out of the ceiling. They're recessed. You do everything you can to make a cell.
No electric thing where they can stick something in there and electrocute themselves. You do everything you can.
I have learned if you want to hurt yourself this bad,
you're going to find a way.
You're going to find a way to do it. I've had, like I said, people trying to drown themselves. I've had a years ago, a very bizarre case of a strangulation of himself with water. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. And and again, it's a very difficult thing. The profile of a suicide in jail is a young white, recently arrested, in segregation for very low-level charges. Typically, that's a profile of what you see around the country. And so it's a young person, usually doesn't really have a long history of criminal, but coming down off the drugs maybe. Oh my gosh, I've let everybody down. What am I going to do? I'll never get out of here. And if you further exacerbate that by isolating them, which is how historically most systems do, then you put the lonely effect into it. You get all kinds of issues. And so what we've learned is take the isolation out of it at least, and try to monitor the behavior. The first 72 hours are critical. You know, but we're not going to be successful all the time. We have 7 attempts to 9 every weekend that are active. And so we're going to lose some of those, and unfortunately society's got to realize this system, the criminal justice system, is not the best way to deal with mental illness.
Yeah, again, and that goes back to your mental illness theme, okay? Because there's no way you're going to be able to prevent suicides across the board, period.
That's right.
I mean, and some of these folks, even if they end up going to, if there's a new system for mental treatment,
Right.
are going to probably try to kill themselves there too as well.
Right.
But at
Right.
least maybe you can get to the heart of their problem, try to get them to cease doing something like that.
And we believe too that the environment is some of it. I mean, jail is a very difficult place to feel better,
yeah.
you know. And so if we can get you in a different design, different idea, that will help some. And I do think, you know, we've got to deal with it as a mental health crisis. And I don't mean Nashville only. The country has got to do that. You hear all the politicians nationally, all the presidential candidates. They all talk about the over incarceration. It's true. Understand, Nick. We are running both the criminal justice system and the mental health system. So the over-incarceration, which oftentimes gets lost in the debate about race and the debate about other things, it's over-incarcerated because we're running a hospital, a mental health hospital, inside of the criminal justice system.
Yeah.
If you took 30% of the population away and treated it as a mental health problem, we're not overpopulated at all as a country.
There'll have to be an initial expense to get that set up.
That's
but
right.
in the long
Over
run, it's
time.
going to save money. Listen, you stay on that, and the time will come.
Right.
But you're preaching to the choir here. You've convinced me a long time ago.
Right.
Sheriff Hall, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Nick.
Always good to see you, my friend. We'll see you again in a few weeks.
You as well.
And I'll be back with a programming note about tomorrow right after this. Stay with us. Great.